Okay, so here is our cycle. And this thing just goes round and round and round. We evaporate, we transpire, we form clouds, we rain, and we get transported by wind. It rains or snows or sleets or hails. I'll leave those out. Replace back. Some of it's going to come down the surface. Some of it's going to infiltrate. Some will get absorbed by the plants. Some will go into underground aquifer. Some of that water is going to move into streams, back into the ocean. Others will just come, stay down in this aquifer waiting to be used by something. Okay? So it's there, it's available. We're going to look at how to tap that here in a little bit. We'll talk about wells here in a little bit. But this is the hydrologic cycle. Any questions? Pretty straightforward thing. Using wind energy, we're using gravity, we're using radiant energy. We're trading forms of energy throughout this whole process. But again, in the world, we never gain or lose energy. And we never gain or lose water. We effectively always have the same amount of water. Now, this water, when it comes down into the ocean, there's still all those molecules of pure water. It's just that they've now absorbed in with the salts that are in the ocean, but as soon as they evaporate, they desalt themselves. It's a natural desalination process. So there's a way to make a desalination plant. Just trap evaporated water. And effectively you can, that is done in a lot of places. It's very inefficient, but it's easy to do in some situations.
Could you trap more down in the south?
Wherever there is more energy, there's going to be more water available to trap. Actually, wherever you have more solar radiation, you're going to have more potential water to trap. And we're relying on the sun to make this process happen. And also the energy from the sun is what creates the wind as well. And so it's creating that process as well. Okay, now the surface water that we're dealing with. As far as irrigators, we have two sources of water to trap from this. We have the surface and the subsurface water. So we have this water coming down the streams, and we have water that's going to form into lakes and places. And then sometimes we're going to create reservoirs on those streams or beside those streams to store water. In other words, there's times when we have lots of fresh water coming down the river in this part of the country. In the spring, we have big spring runoff. Whatever we don't use, we lose. As it comes down that stream, if we're not irrigating right at that moment, it goes right on down to the Columbia River and right on out to the Pacific Ocean. So if we didn't irrigate it as it went by us, we lost it. Well, an option would be to put a reservoir in and divert that stream flow sideways into a reservoir. Now they do have a big reservoir right over here about 2 miles away from us. It's not used for irrigation. It's a flood control reservoir, but it's a method that could be used. They could divert water into that reservoir, store it during the peak water season, and then come late June and July and August, they could start releasing that water back into the stream and increase the overall stream flow. And someday that could happen. That's probably not going to be for irrigation. It'll probably be for fish if they ever do it. But we could end up with a minimum stream flow from the storage in the reservoir over here out off of Rooks Park, where they call it Bennington Lake. And that would be a possibility for a use of that reservoir. It's designated as flood control only, and so that's its only designated use at this point in time. But someday, who knows when, with the fish issues, it's certainly one of those possibilities. And you have to look at the storage and so on, and we'll talk more Well, right now, we may as well talk about it right now. We have some storage issues there with that reservoir. How much could it hold? How much does it leak? You know, what does it have a bad seepage rate? And a few things like that. So there's some things to deal with.